When helping is hurting the hidden negatives, what if the very act of helping someone could make their life worse? What if, in our attempts to do good, we unknowingly create harm not just for others, but for ourselves? This is a question that sits at the heart of a profound and often unsettling philosophical dilemma. Helping is seen as the ultimate moral act, a cornerstone of what it means to be human. But what if we don't fully understand the consequences of our help? What if, in trying to fix a problem, we deepen it? In this video, we're going to explore the hidden negatives of helping, why good intentions are not enough, and how the complexities of aid can reveal something deeply flawed about the way we approach life, morality, and even our own sense of self. Let's start with the simplest version of the problem. When does helping cross the line into hurting? Imagine a friend who's struggling financially. You step in, offering money to ease their burden. At first, this seems like a pure act of kindness. But over time, maybe they begin to rely on your generosity. They stop looking for other solutions or ways to become self-sufficient. Without realizing it, your help has made them dependent, stripping them of the dignity and growth that comes from overcoming hardship on their own. This isn't an isolated issue, it's something we see on a much larger scale in global aid efforts. Governments or organizations pour money into struggling countries, only to find that the aid creates cycles of dependency, corruption, or even exacerbates the problems it was meant to solve. So, let me ask you, when you help someone, are you truly solving the problem, or are you just making yourself feel better? But this isn't just about outcomes, it's also about motives. Why do we help in the first place? Is it really for the other person, or is it for ourselves? Helping often feels good. It reinforces our sense of morality, our belief that we're good people making a positive impact on the world. But this raises a troubling question: is helping always an act of altruism, or is it sometimes an act of ego? When we help, are we seeing the other person as a full, autonomous human being, or are we reducing them to a problem we can fix? And if it's the latter, are we truly helping them, or are we using them to validate ourselves?
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche offers a sharp critique of this dynamic. He warns that when we help others, we often do so from a position of superiority, whether we realize it or not. To help is to put yourself in the role of the strong, the capable, the savior. Meanwhile, the person you're helping is cast into the role of the weak, the dependent, the one who needs saving. Nietzsche believed that this imbalance can be dehumanizing. It robs the person being helped of their agency and reinforces a power dynamic that can be profoundly destructive. So, let me ask you again: when you help, are you lifting someone up, or are you inadvertently keeping them down? There's another layer to this problem, one that hits closer to home. What happens to you when you help? Helping can be exhausting. It can drain your energy, your resources, even your identity. Think about the parent who sacrifices everything for their child, only to lose themselves in the process. Think about the activist who burns out fighting for a cause they care deeply about. Or think about yourself: how often have you put others' needs ahead of your own, only to feel resentment or emptiness later? Helping, when done without boundaries, can become a form of self-neglect. It can blind you to your own needs and distort your sense of self-worth, tying it entirely to what you can give to others. But here's the paradox: we can't just stop helping. The world needs compassion, generosity, and care. Without them, society would collapse into apathy and chaos. So, how do we untangle this dilemma? How do we help in a way that truly serves others without causing harm? How do we give without losing ourselves in the process? How do we ensure that our kindness doesn't perpetuate cycles of dependence, imbalance, or exhaustion? These are the questions we're going to tackle in the next part, as we examine the delicate balance between helping and harming, and how we can navigate the complexities of compassion with wisdom and integrity. The double-edged sword of compassion. When good intentions aren't enough, compassion is one of humanity's greatest gifts. It's what drives us to reach out to others, to care, to alleviate suffering where we see it. But what if compassion isn't always as pure as we imagine? What if, in its raw and unexamined form, it can cause harm as much as it can heal? To truly understand the hidden negatives of helping, we need to examine compassion not as an ideal, but as a double-edged sword, something capable of both immense good and unintended destruction. And the only way to wield it wisely is to first confront its dangers. Let's start with the nature of good intentions. When we see someone in pain, whether it's a friend going through heartbreak, a stranger in need, or an entire community in crisis, our instinct is to act. We want to intervene, to fix the situation, to make things right. But here's the problem: intentions don't guarantee outcomes. You can have the purest heart and still do harm if you don't fully understand the situation you're stepping into. Imagine giving advice to someone who's grieving, thinking you're helping, when all they really needed was for you to listen. Or stepping into a conflict, trying to mediate, only to make things worse because you didn't grasp the underlying dynamics. So, let me ask you, do you always know what's truly needed when you help? Or do you sometimes impose your version of what you think is best? This question becomes even more critical on a larger scale. Think about humanitarian aid. When disaster strikes, the global response is often swift and massive. Food, medicine, money, and volunteers flood into affected areas. But history has shown us that these efforts, while well-intentioned, can sometimes create more problems than they solve. Relief supplies can disrupt local economies, making it harder for communities to rebuild sustainably. Volunteers can unintentionally undermine local leadership, creating dependency instead of empowerment, and aid organizations can clash with one another, wasting resources on bureaucracy and inefficiency. The lesson here is simple but profound: helping without understanding the full context can backfire. And if this is true on a global level, isn't it also true in our personal lives? But there's another layer to this: the emotional weight of compassion. The more we care, the more we feel the pain of others. This is what psychologists call compassion fatigue, and it's something many of us experience without even realizing it. We absorb the suffering around us, whether it's from a loved one, the news, or the world at large, until it starts to erode our own well-being. We feel responsible for fixing problems that aren't ours to fix. We push ourselves to the brink, thinking we have to keep giving, keep helping, no matter the cost. And when we inevitably reach our limit, we feel guilt and shame for not doing enough. So where does this leave us? Are we supposed to stop helping, to shield ourselves from the suffering of others? Mainstream culture often tells us that helping is always good, but that's a dangerously simplistic view. The truth is, helping is a skill, one that requires thought, boundaries, and humility. It's not just about jumping in to fix things, it's about pausing to ask, what's truly needed here? And am I the right person to provide it? Sometimes the answer is yes. But sometimes the most compassionate thing you can do is step back and trust someone else to handle it, or even let the person in need handle it themselves. This brings us to a deeper philosophical question: why do we feel the need to help in the first place? Is it because we genuinely want to relieve suffering, or is it because it makes us uncomfortable to witness it? When we see someone struggling, their pain creates a kind of tension within us. Helping becomes a way to resolve that tension, to make ourselves feel better, to restore our sense of order in the world. But if our motivation is to soothe our discomfort, are we really helping the other person? Or are we just serving ourselves? This isn't an easy question to answer, but it's one we need to ask if we want to help with integrity. To navigate this double-edged sword of compassion, we need to rethink what it means to help. True compassion isn't about rushing in with solutions. It's about slowing down, listening deeply, and being willing to sit with discomfort, both your own and others. It's about recognizing that sometimes the best way to help is to give people the space to grow, even if that means allowing them to struggle. And it's about setting boundaries, knowing that you can't pour from an empty cup, and that your well-being matters too. In the next part, we'll explore what it means to help with wisdom. How can we balance compassion with boundaries? How can we ensure that our help empowers rather than harms? And most importantly, how can we embrace a new way of helping that is rooted not in ego, but in humility and understanding? Helping without harm, the art of compassionate boundaries. If there's one thing we often forget about helping, it's that there's a difference between offering a hand and taking over someone's life. True compassion isn't about fixing everything for someone else, it's about empowering them to fix things for themselves. But here's the problem: helping can become addictive. The more we give, the more we feel needed, valued, essential. And yet, in our eagerness to help, we often fail to ask the most important question: am I helping in a way that leaves the other person stronger, or am I unintentionally weakening them? Let's break this down. When we step in to help someone, especially in difficult situations, we often feel a sense of urgency. We want to alleviate their suffering, to remove the obstacles in their path as quickly as possible. But in doing so, we may rob them of the chance to learn, to grow, to develop the resilience that comes from facing challenges on their own. Think about a child learning to walk. If a parent always carries them, shielding them from every stumble, the child will never build the strength or confidence to walk on their own. The same principle applies to adults. Struggle is an essential part of growth, and sometimes the most compassionate thing we can do is step back and let someone struggle, even if it's hard to watch. But stepping back doesn't mean abandoning someone. It means setting boundaries that allow both you and the person you're helping to thrive. Boundaries are often misunderstood as barriers, as walls that keep people out. But in reality, boundaries are bridges. They create a healthy balance between giving and preserving your own well-being. Without boundaries, helping can quickly turn into enabling. You may find yourself solving the same problems over and over again, trapped in a cycle where neither you nor the other person is truly free. Here's the truth we don't talk about enough: not every problem is yours to solve. And not every act of helping is helpful. Sometimes, stepping in can reinforce a narrative of helplessness in the person you're trying to aid. If they begin to believe they can't survive without your help, they lose confidence in their own abilities. And if you begin to believe you're the only one who can save them, you lose sight of your own limits. So let me ask you, when you help, are you empowering someone, or are you breaking yourself to keep them standing? This brings us to the idea of compassionate boundaries, the ability to help in a way that serves both the giver and the receiver. Compassionate boundaries start with self-awareness. Before you offer help, ask yourself, why am I doing this? Is it because I truly believe this is what's best for them, or is it because I'm uncomfortable watching them struggle? Am I offering help they've asked for, or am I imposing my idea of what they need? And most importantly, am I helping in a way that respects their autonomy and preserves my own well-being? One of the hardest lessons in life is accepting that you can't save everyone. Some struggles are beyond your control. Some people aren't ready to be helped, and some problems don't have immediate solutions. But that doesn't mean you can't still be there for someone. Sometimes, the most powerful form of help isn't solving the problem, it's simply witnessing it, listening without judgment, offering support without trying to fix it, letting them know they're not alone, but trusting them to find their own way forward. Boundaries also mean recognizing your own limits. You can't pour from an empty cup, and if you burn out trying to save everyone, you'll eventually have nothing left to give. Self-care isn't selfish, it's the foundation of sustainable compassion. If you want to help others, you have to take care of yourself first. This means knowing when to step in and when to step back. It means saying no when you need to, even if it feels uncomfortable. And it means trusting that the people you care about are capable of more than you might think. In the final part, we'll explore how to redefine what it means to help entirely. How can we move from a mindset of fixing to one of empowering? How can we embrace the idea that sometimes helping means doing less, not more? And how can we create a culture of compassion that honors both the giver and the receiver? Empowerment over rescue, redefining the meaning of helping. The ultimate act of helping isn't fixing someone's problems, it's supporting them as they find the strength and clarity to fix things themselves. Too often, we fall into the trap of thinking that helping means taking control, stepping in, or carrying the weight for someone else. But real help, the kind that transforms lives, comes from empowering others to reclaim their own agency. It's not about being a savior, it's about being a guide, a witness, a partner in their journey toward growth and self-discovery. And that shift from rescuing to empowering changes everything. To redefine what it means to help, we need to confront one uncomfortable truth: not all suffering is bad. Pain, though difficult to witness, is often the catalyst for transformation. Think about your own life. How many of your greatest lessons came from moments of struggle, failure, or heartbreak? Those experiences may have been excruciating, but they shaped you. They forced you to grow in ways that comfort never could. When we rush to remove someone else's pain, we risk taking away their opportunity to grow. So, let me ask you, are you helping someone because they truly cannot handle the situation, or because you don't want to see them struggle? Empowerment begins with trust. Trust that the person you're helping is capable of more than they realize. Trust that they have the resilience to face challenges and the wisdom to find their own solutions. This doesn't mean abandoning them, it means showing up in a way that respects their autonomy. Instead of saying, "Here's what you need to do," try asking, "What do you think would help?" instead of solving the problem for them. Offer support as they work through it themselves. This kind of help doesn't always feel as immediate or gratifying, but it's far more meaningful in the long run. True help also requires humility. It means acknowledging that you don't have all the answers, that your perspective is limited, and that what worked for you might not work for someone else. Helping isn't about imposing your will or proving your worth, it's about meeting someone where they are, with curiosity and respect. It's about listening, not just to their words, but to their needs, their fears, and their strengths. Finally, helping with wisdom means embracing balance. You can't carry everyone, and you shouldn't try to. The best way to help others is to stand strong yourself, to be a source of encouragement, not exhaustion. By setting boundaries, by helping with intention rather than impulse, you create a space where both you and the person you're supporting can thrive. So, the next time you feel the urge to help, pause. Ask yourself, am I empowering this person, or am I trying to rescue them? Am I lifting them up, or am I carrying them in a way that leaves us both weaker? Helping, when done with humility, wisdom, and respect, isn't just an act of kindness, it's an act of profound love. And in that love, we all grow stronger.